everyone. For my discussion board post, just to do something a little different, I created an infographic outlining the steps that would occur to resolve this scenario number 1. In terms of understanding the problem, it occurred to me as I was reading the scenario that the speaker, and for moving on that will be me, just for ease of understanding, that I was the only person with all of the information and that I was the only one having the isolated conversations with, say, the special ed and the TESOL teachers, as well as being privy to the Facebook group conversation, etc. And while I was sure that all of the isolated parties were working in their own minds in the best interest of the kids, they weren't really working in the best interest of all of the students. And so in interpreting the problem, to develop a clearer understanding and making sure that all of the stakeholders had the same clear understanding of the problem before attempting to solve it together, I decided that the first step to take would be to have a discussion over Zoom and inviting all the stakeholders, teachers, staff, parents. An email would be sent out from the school with the date and time and the Zoom link, and I created an agenda. Once in this discussion, I wanted to reframe the whole situation away from the car parade idea, more towards the broader goal, which is outlined on the top of the infographic, bringing cheer to our school community during COVID-19. So I'm going to move to my agenda that I created, right, where I would open with just articulating the purpose of the meeting, and then articulating some goals to the group, bringing cheer to the students, reaching all students. Of course, along the way, I would anticipate that someone would bring up safety protocols in the middle of a pandemic, and with all the different stakeholders, I'm sure that student engagement in online learning would be brought up as well. However, it's important to remember in terms of the multi-component model of school leader problem solving, when it comes to goals, having a broader range of goals is better, and having multiple minds involved to solve the problem in a group is better, because then you get the best solution that the group could produce. So my hope was that by framing the goals and having some guiding and clarifying questions, that all stakeholders would be able to weigh in, and we would have a greater diversity in thinking, both in approaching the purpose of the meeting, which is to obviously to bring cheer and meet the needs of our students during this difficult time, and in approaching a solution maybe a little bit outside of the original one, which seemed to address only a certain population of the students. So in going back to the infographic, my hope was that during the course of the discussion with all the stakeholders, that we would arrive at a separate but equal group of different initiatives to address all of our student populations. My hope would be to have subcommittees and then have each subcommittee address one initiative to hit one or more groups of students, such as care packages for the students in the homeless shelter, the local car parade that was suggested initially, e-visits and other electronic types of correspondence to maintain contact with students who are out of district, extra support groups for academics, social support, emotional support, also meeting over Zoom, and then engaging some qualified stakeholders such as language teachers, TESOL teachers, ELL, maybe even World Language Honor Society students in the high school that are multilingual, to reach across cultures and help the students that might need a little bit more guidance in terms of technology and online learning that were mentioned in the scenario. I also would make sure in that original meeting that the school nurse be there, that admin would be there, that counselors, special ed TESOL teachers would be there to make sure that everybody's heard and brought up their concerns. Sorry, I moved into solving the problem. But in terms of having all of those people there that could speak for some of the underrepresented groups, we would be able to wrap our minds around some of the constraints that would come up for those groups by having more qualified stakeholders be able to weigh in. And so in the notes section of the agenda, I sort of laid out how maybe this would look. Going back. And then I would hope that each of these subcommittees would send a proposal to administration and the nurse to make sure that we stay ahead of some of the constraints in terms of safety and compliance and all of that, to make sure that each of the subcommittees would working within those limitations or within those boundaries. Limitations isn't a great word. But that we maintain a dialogue between the subcommittee members who are trying to put together these things like care packages and schedule meetings with students and whatnot, that we would maintain a dialogue to make sure that we could come to some creative solution, even if we did have to be very careful with safety protocols and the like. In terms of solution processes, just making sure that we follow up with students afterwards, give them multiple avenues to give us feedback on how we're serving their needs and how the parade or the care package or their support groups are working out for them. And making sure that throughout the entire process and afterwards that all of the different people who are involved feel heard in terms of their concerns and their input and feel appreciated for taking these steps to better serve our students, such as school administration and staff, IT department, community sponsors, if the community offers to help out with things like care packages, if any students are brought into the fold, like World Language Honor Society members or other peers for the support groups, and of course, any involved parents. And so that would be my outline for solution processes and follow-up after the initiatives. So I think I have hit all four of the multi-component models for the school leader problem solving. And thank you for listening to me ramble on for almost 8 minutes.